Before seatbelts clicked and the nightly news hummed from a wood-grain zenith, supper carried the house. You could tell what was cooking before you hit the porch. Onion, meeting hot Crisco, a casserole bubbling in a Pyrex, the faint tang of French's mustard. Here, we're opening the cupboard of memory. 30 plates deep, each one a little story with a fork in it. 1. Ham loaf. Not meatloaf, not baked ham. Ham loaf lived in that thrifty 70s sweet spot where leftovers became company food. Mama sent yesterday's slices through the grinder with a sleeve of crushed saltines, a splash of pet milk, and an egg to keep it honest. The glaze was the wink. Brown sugar, a spoon of French's mustard, a little apple cider vinegar, maybe a spoonful of Heinz if she wanted extra shine. It baked in a speckled enamel pan until the edges caramelized and the kitchen smelled like Sunday after church. Thick slices hit the plate beside pet milk, mashed potatoes, and Del Monte green beans, and someone always asked for just a little more glaze. It cut clean, packed tidy in a Tupperware for tomorrow's sandwiches, and never once apologized for being made from scraps. In a decade built on resourcefulness, ham loaf was proof that good manners and good flavor could share the same slice. Pork chops with apples and onions. Cast iron clattered, and the sizzle answered back. Thick-cut pork chops, salted, peppered, and kissed by heat until a little crust formed. Then in went sliced Vidalia onions and golden delicious apples, a pat of Land O'Lakes, and a splash of apple cider to pull up every browned bit. The skillet turned into a small orchestra, sweet, savory, and just enough tartness to balance a scoop of plain rice. On the side, a jiffy cornbread skillet came out bronzed, steam curling like a ribbon. The best bite found pork, apple, and onion in the same forkful, the kind of harmony you don't brag on, because the plate says it for you. Folks passed the pan like a trophy, spooning sauce over everything, including the cornbread they just wanted to taste. On busy weeknights or easy Sundays, this dish never tried to be fancy, just right, reliable, and welcome as a familiar voice at the table. 3. Salisbury steak with mashed potatoes and peas. Forget the frozen tray. This was the stovetop version that made you linger. Ground chuck mixed with a packet of Lipton onion soup mix, a splash of Worcestershire, and breadcrumbs, shaped into oval patties, like Mama learned from that red Betty Crocker. They browned in cast iron, then slid into a mushroom gravy made with Campbell's beef consommé and a small can of mushrooms for that diner-style gloss. Meanwhile, potatoes whipped with warm pet milk turned silky, and green giant peas warmed with a little butter until they shone. Chicken and rice casserole. The casserole that felt like a household policy. A Pyrex 13x9 waited while Mama stirred Campbell's cream of mushroom and cream of celery with chicken stock, then folded in minute rice and bite-sized pieces of poached chicken. A sprinkle of paprika on top, because presentation matters, and into the oven it went, bubbling at the edges, a little golden where the spoon would dive first. The rice absorbed every good thing, turning tender and almost custardy under that blanket of sauce. A side of canned crescent rolls puffed just in time. No drama, no waste. Just dependable warmth in a dish that tasted like plans working out. Smothered cube steak with onions. Budget cut. Big result. Cube steak, dusted in seasoned flour, hit hot oil for a quick sear, then back to the skillet with a tumble of caramelizing onions. A roux from the pan drippings, a splash of Swanson beef broth, and the gravy turned glossy and sure of itself. The meat simmered low until tender, the onions soft as a promise. On the table, hot white rice, or a pan of biscuits brushed with melted Land O'Lakes. The real moment came when someone tilted the skillet and spooned that brown gravy across everything like it was a rightful inheritance. Plates went empty, conversation relaxed, and the evening felt settled in the best possible way. 6. Tuna noodle casserole. 70s shorthand for We're going to be fine. Wide egg noodles, a can of Star-Kissed, Campbell's cream of celery, frozen peas thawed under warm water, and a handful of shredded Kraft cheddar for good measure. Everything folded together, poured into a buttered baking dish, and topped with crushed ruffles because someone smart knew texture matters. It baked until the edges crisped and the center bubbled, the kind of scent that made the cat wind figure eights around your ankles. Bowls clinked. Spoons did the rest. Practical? Absolutely. But there was comfort in that predictability, in the way every bite tasted like a plan fulfilled. In the ledger of weeknights, this one always penciled in a small victory. 7 Mexican Casserole. Taco Night, Casserole Edition, the southern shortcut version that felt festive even on a Tuesday. Ground chuck browned with Old El Paso seasoning, a can of Rotel tomatoes with green chilies, and a little onion. In the dish went torn flour tortillas, the beef mixture, and generous handfuls of sharp cheddar in lazy layers, a dusting of chili powder on top, and into the oven until the cheese melted into glorious strings. It brought a whisper of travel to kitchens that hadn't seen a passport, a hint of spice to plates more used to pepper and salt. Served with Fritos on the side for scooping, it turned dinner into a bit of an event. No piñata required. Tomato soup, Meatloaf. The glaze told the secret. Campbell's tomato soup met brown sugar and a little cider vinegar, painted over a sturdy loaf of ground beef mixed with oatmeal, diced onion, and a beaten egg. It baked high and proud, sending out that tangy sweet aroma that said, "Wash your hands, set the table." Slices held together like they had backbone, perfect for a next-day sandwich on sunbeam bread with a swipe of Duke's. Dinner tonight came with Hungry Jack mashed potatoes and buttered corn, learned once and kept for life, as sensible and satisfying as a full tank before payday. Baked spaghetti. Spaghetti, southern style, with a casserole soul, angel hair boiled just shy of done, tossed with Hunt's tomato sauce, browned ground chuck, and a little onion and garlic powder the way the red book suggested. Half went into the dish, then a snow of Kraft mozzarella, and a shake from the green top parmesan. Then the rest of the pasta and another dairy snowfall on top. 15 more minutes passed, melted, long enough for the corners to crisp, where noodles met Pyrex. A side of garlic toast from the freezer aisle toasted up right as the timer dinged, making the whole table smell like Friday night. Shake and bake, chicken with Rice-a-Roni. The packet that turned kids into sous chefs. Chicken legs went into the paper bag with those seasoned crumbs, a little shake and shimmy, and onto a foil-lined pan. In a saucepan, Rice-a-Roni toasted its thin vermicelli threads before water, and seasoning joined the party, filling the kitchen with that unmistakable, "we're close" aroma. When the chicken emerged, it crackled in the air, edges crisp, a scoop of the San Francisco treat. It wasn't a feast. It was dependable joy with built-in participation. Proof that convenience and pride can hold hands and walk straight to the supper bell. Pigs in a blanket. Some nights, supper wore a grin. Little Smokies wrapped in Pillsbury crescent triangles, lined up like soldiers on a baking sheet, and brushed with a tiny kiss of melted butter. They puffed into golden bundles that vanished the moment French's mustard showed up. Call it snack supper, game night fuel, or a clever way to stretch a pack of Lynx. The tray never made it far from the oven before hands found it. A quick relish plate, Vlasic spears, carrot sticks, celery, and paper plates to keep things moving. Children called dibs, grown folks pretended not to. The pleasure here wasn't complicated. It was warm, handheld, perfectly seasoned by its own simplicity. Sometimes joy comes wrapped in a crescent, and that's explanation enough. Warm turnip, green dip with bacon. Before spinach dip took over potlucks, turnip greens had the mic. Chopped cooked greens folded into softened Philadelphia cream cheese, a spoon of Duke's, a little garlic powder, and a handful of sharp cheddar. Crumbled bacon on top guaranteed attention. It baked until the edges browned, and the center loosened into scoopable comfort. Served hot from a little oval casserole, the dip traveled from coffee table to dinner table without losing fans. It tasted like someone knew the old ways and wasn't afraid to dress them up for company. In a decade that respected resourcefulness, this dish made a case for using what you had and celebrating it. Southern pimento cheese. A mixing bowl, a box grater, and 10 quiet minutes. Sharp cheddar met diced pimentos from that squat glass jar, a dollop of Duke's, a whisper of Worcestershire, and a pinch of McCormick paprika. Some families stirred in a touch of cream cheese for body, others kept it loose and spreadable. Either way, the bowl drew a crowd. Celery sticks dipped first, then Ritz crackers, then, admit it, spoons. Sandwiches on white sunbeam bread wrapped in wax paper tasted like summer porch sitting. Scoop it onto a burger, tuck it into deviled eggs, or serve as a side with sliced tomatoes and salt. Pimento cheese didn't need a reason. It was the reason. Corn Dodgers. Call them Dodgers, call them fritters, just don't be late. White cornmeal whisked with a little flour, buttermilk, a pinch of salt, and a spoon of melted Crisco made a batter that fried up quick in shallow oil. Spoonfuls dropped into the skillet, puffed, crisped, and turned the color of toasted straw. A paper bag lined with towels waited to catch them, shaking off the extra shine. Dodgers stood beside pots of beans, Brunswick stew, or a mess of greens, the kind of side that made everything else taste somehow more complete. Some folks sneaked chopped onion into the batter, others stirred and cracked pepper for bite. Stacked high, they never cooled all the way before disappearing. 15. Shrimp and grits. Before brunch menus discovered it, coastal kitchens kept the secret. Quick grits simmered with a mix of water and pet milk until creamy, then finished with a pat of butter and a quiet rain of salt. In another pan, Gulf shrimp sautéed with bacon, onion, and bell pepper, the southern trinity. Splash of Worcestershire, squeeze of lemon, and the pan suddenly smelled like a vacation you could afford. The shrimp tumbled over the grits, juices seeping into every ridge like they were meant for each other. A few drops of Texas Pete for the brave, chopped scallions for color, and suddenly the table got real quiet. 16. Chicken pot pie. The pie that made leftovers feel like a plan. Shredded chicken, peas, carrots, and diced potato cozied up in a sauce built from Swanson broth and a spoon of Campbell's cream of chicken, whisked silky. It slid into a Pyrex pie plate under a Pillsbury crust, edges crimped with a fork, a tiny vent cut like a promise. The oven did the rest, golden top, bubbling edges, that unmistakable aroma of, give it 5 more minutes. Served in generous wedges that held together, it didn't need fuss or garnish, just a spoon to chase the last bit of sauce. Some families dotted the filling with a splash of pet milk for richness. Others sprinkled a pinch of poultry seasoning to nudge the memory. Either way, the pie arrived like comfort in a circle, a lesson in how simple pieces become something worth gathering for. Collard greens and ham hock. A deep pot, low heat and thyme, collards rinsed and stacked, stems trimmed, ribbons sliced, a ham hock nested in the bottom with water, a bay leaf, and a promise. Hours later, the house knew exactly what was happening. Greens turned tender. Broth turned into that treasured pot liquor. A dash of cider vinegar and a shake of pepper sauce finished it just right. On the side, hot skillet cornbread with a brown bottom that snapped when it broke. Bowls filled with greens and little sips of broth that somehow tasted restorative. 7-layer pea salad. It arrived in a trifle bowl like a parade in glass. Iceberg lettuce, thawed sweet peas, diced red onion, chopped hard-boiled eggs, shredded cheddar, bacon crumbles, and a top layer of dressing whipped from Hellmann's, a spoon of sugar, and a squeeze of lemon. The overnight rest in the fridge was the trick. Everything kept its place and its crisp. At serving, the spoon dove straight down, pulling up a little of each layer so no one missed the point. Sweet met, salty, crunchy met creamy, and everyone pretended it was just a salad, while going back for seconds. Spinach cheese squares. Clever, green, and surprisingly habit-forming. Frozen chopped spinach squeezed dry, eggs whisked with pet milk, a heap of shredded cheddar, minced onion, to give it that tender bite. Green bean casserole. Ubiquitous for a reason. Del Monte beans drained and waiting. Campbell's cream of mushroom whisked smooth. A handful of French's fried onions stirred through, and more waiting on top for the crunch. The oven tightened everything into that unmistakable spoonful, soft, savory, with a toasty crown. It didn't need defending. It needed a serving spoon big enough to keep the line moving. The dish showed up everywhere from Tuesday tables to Thanksgiving spreads because it earned its place the old-fashioned way. Consistency, warmth, and a knack for making a plate feel complete. Country potato cakes. Leftover mashed potatoes never saw the trash in a careful kitchen. They met a beaten egg, a spoon of flour, chopped green onion, salt, pepper, and a sigh of patience. Patties formed in floured hands and went sizzling into a hot skillet, browning to a sturdy gold that announced itself down the hall. Edges crisp, centers tender. They slid onto a plate to wait for a dab of ketchup or a spoon of sour cream. Breakfast for supper, or side for anything. Potato cakes rescued yesterday and dressed it for today. The smell tugged at memory. The bite confirmed you remembered right. A stack on a warm plate could keep a family standing around the stove, talking about nothing particular while the next batch browned. That's not a recipe note so much as a truth observed. Southern macaroni and cheese. Baked, set, and proud. Elbows parboiled and rinsed, then layered in a buttered dish with chunks of sharp cheddar. A custard of eggs, pet milk, and a pinch of dry mustard poured through until the noodles lifted like a raft. The top got extra cheese because everyone knows the vote outcome. It baked until the edges browned and the center barely wobbled, cooling just enough to slice clean. This wasn't a sauce and stir stovetop affair. It was a casserole with structure, the kind you cut into squares and serve with fried chicken or ham. The corner piece, kissed by heat, always disappeared first, so plan your plating strategy. Mac like this held its own, no apology, taking up real estate on the plate and expectations in the heart. Perfectly at home in a Sunday lineup or a Tuesday miracle. Fried okra. Paper sack method, tried and true. Sliced okra tossed with a pinch of salt, dipped in buttermilk, then shaken with white cornmeal in a brown bag until every piece wore a thin jacket. Hot peanut oil did the rest. Quick fry, steady stir, let the pieces float and turn. They drained on newspaper like little emerald coins gone golden, seasoned as they sighed. A bowl left on the counter vanished before the main dish arrived. A second batch kept peace. The charm was in the snap and the clean flavor, summer captured without fanfare. You could dress it up with a sprinkle of cayenne or keep it plain and honest. Either way, it delivered that irresistible just one more rhythm that ends with an empty bowl and a satisfied table. Hush puppies. Sidekick turned scene stealer. Cornmeal, flour, baking powder, salt, chopped onion, and buttermilk, stirred to a thick batter with a gentle hand. A spoon dropped portions into hot oil, and the puppies rolled and browned, floating like they knew exactly what they were doing. They cracked open to steam when you split them, releasing that onion-sweet aroma that calls fried catfish to attention. A paper towel mountain couldn't keep up with the reach of eager hands. Some cooks slipped in a pinch of sugar, others a dusting of cayenne. All agreed the test batch was for quality control and not open to debate. Hush puppies brought joy to fish fry tables and calm to growling stomachs. Tennessee onions. Proof that a humble bulb can headline. Thick-cut sweet onions layered in a buttered casserole, sprinkled with garlic salt and a few dashes of Worcestershire, then blanketed with shredded Swiss and mozzarella, or whatever was in the drawer. Land O'Lakes butter cubed across the top, melted down into every ring. If you've ever chased the last bit around the dish with a crust of bread, you've met Tennessee onions properly. Scalloped potatoes. Layer by layer, the case builds. Thin sliced russets fanned into a buttered dish, sprinkled with salt, black pepper, and the lightest grating of nutmeg. Warmed milk. Some folks fold in a little pet milk, poured over, then dots of butter to help with the browning business. A modest snowfall of shredded cheese if your household voted that way, though plenty kept it classic and let the cream speak. Southern butter beans with ham, cooked low until the broth turned silky. A ham bone, or thick ham hock, went in for backbone, onion for company, and a bay leaf to keep things civilized. Simmered until the beans were tender, but still themselves, finished with salt, pepper, and a knob of butter that melted like a good idea. Ladled into bowls with a side of skillet cornbread, they felt generous and steady. A spoon of chow chow on top brightened the whole situation in one move. Butter beans didn't posture. They comforted, filling the room with a sense of rightness that needed no speech. In summer, they shared the table with sliced tomatoes. In winter, they warmed cold evenings without complaint. 28. Rice and gravy, the quiet anchor of countless plates. White rice, Mahatma or Uncle Ben's, cooked fluffy and waiting. In the skillet, drippings from cube steak or Sunday roast met flour, stirred until the color turned the shade of a well-worn saddle. Swanson broth or water thinned it to the proper pour, and a small splash of coffee, house secret, deepened the flavor without announcing itself. Salt, pepper, and patience finished the job. Gravy drifted over rice like it belonged there, which it did. Southern deviled eggs. Tupperware carriers with little egg cradles knew their worth. Yolks mashed smooth with dukes, a dab of French's, a pinch of salt, and just enough sweet pickle relish to make the filling bright. Piped or spooned back into halved whites, dusted with paprika like a blessing. The plate traveled fast, the way good news moves. At fish fries, funerals, and weeknight tables alike, deviled eggs needed no setting, just a place to land. One turns into two without effort. The third requires only the thinnest excuse. If your aunt guarded her ratio like a state secret, you learned to respect the craft. These weren't appetizers, so much as tradition in bite-size form, familiar and celebratory in the same breath. Cabbage with bacon. A hot skillet, thick-cut bacon, and shredded green cabbage. That's the promise. Bacon rendered until crisp, then scooped out while the cabbage tumbled into the flavorful fat with chopped onion. A sprinkle of salt and pepper, a brief lid to steam, then the lid off so everything could caramelize at the edges. Served with cornbread or alongside pork chops, it offered comfort without pretense. If there were leftovers, a fried egg on top the next morning proved how smart yesterday had been. That's 30 plates and 100 memories. The sound of a spoon against Pyrex, the way the back door sighed when someone brought in ice, the soft confidence of a recipe card in Mama's hand. These dishes weren't about impressing. They were about belonging. They made room at the table for long days, tight weeks, and small celebrations that mattered anyway. If you felt seen somewhere between a pot of greens and a pan of biscuits, you already know the truth. Comfort isn't complicated. It's shared. So pass a plate, tell the story that goes with it, and let the house smell like supper again. We want them back, not just for the taste, but for the way they bring us together.